I had 4 house calls booked across 2 bus lines. My motive was to finish the shift without another write-up. My role was the aide who logs meds and meals. And my plan was to vent on 4chan for 5 minutes by posting a crop pic of a client note that made me laugh, then delete it and keep moving. I was already on thin ice, late bus last week, missed a charting window, got that verbal warning that still ends up in your file. So yeah, I did the dumb thing people do when they're tired and angry and broke. I looked for a cheap laugh and a little attention. The note was just a magnet board schedule with stupid handwriting. Shower Tuesday. Call daughter. No grape fruit. No name, no address. I cropped the top edge, blurred what I thought mattered, felt clever for half a second, hit post, and shoved my phone away because my first client was already waiting. Normal day. Blood pressure cuff, pill organizer, sink full of dishes, TV blasting, stale heat, that lemon cleaner smell that never really cleans anything. I watched her swallow because you can't chart taken unless you see it. Then I logged meals and bathroom stuff and all the little humiliations we turn to check boxes so the agency can pretend it's care. I left, hustled to the bus, did the same thing again at the next stop, trying to stay ahead of the clock because the clock is what gets you fired, not the actual work. Lunch was a gas station burrito on a bench behind a strip mall. I checked the thread, expecting people to laugh at the boomer fridge board. My stomach dropped so hard I almost threw up. They weren't laughing. They were zooming the reflection in the microwave door behind it. I hadn't even noticed the microwave. In the warped shine, you could see a slice of kitchen and a window with blinds, and these idiots treated it like a goddamn forensic puzzle. Lines, arrows. This is facing east. Those are vinyl frames. Somebody pulled a street view angle off a window height and a building setback. People started posting possible buildings like they were picking restaurants. Then someone typed, "Old folks equals easy targets." And the replies came in casual and excited, like he'd suggested a fun weekend plan. I deleted my post. Didn't matter. Screenshots were already quoted, reposted, archived. I kept refreshing like a moron, like I could catch it in midair and stop it from hitting the ground, but it was already splattered everywhere. On the bus to my next client, I watched strangers narrow down a place I'd been inside that morning, arguing over lobby tile colors and which side the units faced. The sick part was the tone, bored, smug, teamwork why, like they weren't triangulating real people's lives, just solving a puzzle for points. When I got to Ms. D's building, the directory board by the mailboxes made my skin crawl. Same cheap plastic strips, same little scratches, same names I'd walked past 1,000 times without thinking. Now it looked like a menu. I went up, knocked, and Ms. D opened the door too fast with no chain on, cardigan half buttoned, hands trembling. Her landline was off the hook, but it wouldn't stop ringing because whoever was calling kept calling back. She kept talking over the ring, breathy and scared, saying a man told her I was stealing her medication and she needed to hand it over to prove it. And she said it like she'd been coached. She dumped her pill bottles into a grocery bag and set it by the door like she was paying a debt. I snatched the bag so hard the plastic bit my fingers. I slid the chain into place and locked it. I unplugged the landline from the wall, and she protested because she didn't want to miss her daughter, didn't want to miss the doctor, didn't want to be in trouble. My phone buzzed with an unknown number, then again, and I didn't answer because I couldn't stand the idea of hearing my own job title come out of some stranger's mouth again. I called my supervisor while I sorted bottles on the table, counting, checking labels, trying to reconstruct what she'd missed. I told my supervisor this wasn't confusion. This was targeting, that Ms. D had been instructed to surrender her meds, that they knew my role and her routine. I expected urgency. I got policy. Handle it calmly. Don't antagonize the patient. Redirect and reassure. Like Ms. D was the danger and not the people weaponizing her trust. I asked for permission to call police. I got a sigh and a reminder to document. I called the building manager anyway and hit voicemail. I called non-emergency and sat on hold listening to tinny music while Ms. D stared at the unplugged phone like it was alive. I checked the thread again because fear makes you keep looking at the thing hurting you. And that's when I saw it, a photo of the building directory board, taken close enough to read, and her units circled like a target. The caption wasn't "Go hurt her." It was worse. "New quest. Reply stack fast." People asking what time the med aid comes. People swapping phone scripts. People laughing about how easy it is to get an old lady to put her pills in a bag. I want to slam my head into the counter. I rebuilt her pill organizer, wrote "Do not answer phone" on a sticky note, and slapped it on the fridge. Checked vitals twice because my hands didn't trust the first reading. I called her daughter off the chart contact list, even though I knew I'd get yelled at for going outside the care plan. No answer. I left a message that sounded like I was reporting a broken pipe because I couldn't make myself say "internet mob" out loud. Ms. D kept asking if she was in trouble. I kept saying no while feeling like the biggest liar on earth. Then I had to leave because I still had visits, and if I skipped them, those clients miss meds too, and the agency punishes the worker who breaks the schedule, not the situation that broke the patient. I set her chain, double-checked the deadbolt, asked a neighbor across the hall to keep an ear out without explaining why, and walked into the hallway with my keys between my fingers like a weapon, hating myself for how useless that felt. The rest of my shift went crooked. My hands shook through blood sugar checks. I misspelled chart notes and had to backspace like 20 times. My phone buzzed with unknown numbers until I threw it in airplane mode, and I didn't care that I was unreachable because my clients were reachable, and that was the fucking problem. On the bus back toward the office, the thread kept mutating. People posting updates claiming they got her to bring the bag outside. Others bragging about calling again for fun. I knew half of it was lies for clout, but it didn't comfort me because all it takes is one real call, one real confused person, one real misdose. Near the end of the day, my supervisor finally reached me and started in about professionalism and why I wasn't answering. I snapped and told her rapport doesn't stop a phone. She went quiet in that manager way that means you just bought yourself a meeting. Hours later, the on-call line got word Ms. D was in the emergency. Confused, blood pressure high, pill counts off, missing doses. Not because she forgot, because she got rattled and obeyed a stranger's voice and the day tipped her over. I drove past her building after my shift and sat across the street, watching the lobby doors like that would undo anything. I couldn't go in. I didn't want to see that directory board again. I went home and tried to erase myself, deleted accounts, cleared everything, sent reports into the void, begged an archive page that doesn't answer. I found my cropped photo already reposted with extra zooms and arrows, like a how-to guide, and I realized the damage wasn't my post alone. It was the fact that a crowd saw a confused elderly woman and thought easy. People think doxing is when you get your boss called or your address posted. That's bad, sure. This was quieter and meaner. The cruelty didn't land on the person who fucked up. It landed on the people who can't defend themselves. I deleted everything I could delete. The archive stayed. The calls didn't hit my phone. They hit the people who can't fight back. I had an evening maintenance window for campus LED signs. My motive was to clear a backlog and get home before midnight. My role was the guy with the admin app and access codes, and my plan was to push routine event updates, ignore 4chan, and clock out clean. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I was trying to get a stupid queue down to 0 and stop hearing, "Why is the board still wrong?" from people who don't know what a controller is. I had my list, my headset, a lukewarm coffee, and that numb focus you get when the job is repetitive and you just want it over. During dinner break, I clicked a/poll thread because I'm stupid, and it was full of meetup talk. No address, no flyer, just hints about our quad and a time. It didn't read like politics. It read like bait. People dared each other, posted fake security tips like they wanted bodies moving, not voices heard. They dropped landmarks, fountain, glass library, the big steps by the student union, and kept saying north exits like it was the punchline. I closed it and told myself it was internet noise, then felt gross for even giving it 30 seconds of my attention. I pushed 2 clean updates, dining hall specials, a banner for a guest lecture. I fixed a typo that had been sitting on one board for days because nobody else wanted to deal with the vendor portal. Security kept barking on a radio about a dark board by the stadium. I told them it was a power supply and I'd hit it after the sweep. The dispatcher got snippy and said I was refusing a safety request. I snapped back that a dark screen isn't safety, it's inconvenience, and she threatened to note it in the report. That was how the night started. Petty threats and ego. Everyone trying to cover their own ass. At 9:41, my phone pinged with an unauthorized sign change alert. I opened the admin panel and saw every screen on campus flashing the same message. Evacuate now. Gas leak. Use north exits. It hit everywhere at once, perfectly synced, like someone slammed a single button and the campus flinched. I hadn't pushed it. I didn't even have a gas leak template. We had fire, weather, active threat, shelter in place. Gas leak wasn't in our library, and I knew that for a fact because I'd asked for it before and got told, we don't need that. We're not a refinery. People reacted faster than my brain did. Doors banged, open up the hall. Footsteps started, then turned into that one ugly roar of a crowd moving with the same fear. Students started running. Not late to class running. Full sprint, tripping, shoulder-checking strangers, dragging friends by the wrist. Someone yelled gas, and the word stuck in the air like smoke. A kid wiped out on the tile near the stairwell, and another kid stepped over him without looking back. I saw a girl lose a shoe and keep going like she didn't even feel it. The message didn't just scare them, it gave them direction, and that direction forced them into the same choke points. I ran for the control room because that's where you kill a campus-wide push. I tried logging in from my phone while moving. Password rejected. I typed it again, slower. Rejected. I tried my backup admin rejected. My throat went dry and my heart started thumping hard enough I felt in my ears. I hit the control room door and swiped my badge. Red. Again. Red. That door had never rejected me. I stood there swiping plastic like an idiot while the hallway shook with people running and my radio started spilling chaos. Security voices overlapping, yelling locations, asking if facilities confirmed a leak. Somebody said the science building smelled weird, and that one stupid sentence acted like fuel because now the panic had a reason people could repeat. I called IT with my hands shaking. I said, someone hijacked the signs, I'm locked out, people are running, kill it now. The on-call guy went sharp immediately, like I was trying to dump it on him. He asked what I changed. I told him I changed nothing. He put me on hold, came back, and said, we see your session active. Not a session. Mine. My username. My account, authenticated, pushing the message. I stare at the admin page, and there it was, my login listed as live. A clean line item like I was sitting calmly at a console and choosing to wreck my own campus. It felt like watching a video of yourself committing a crime. I said, that's not me. He said, it authenticated. Your token's valid. It's on the internal network. Like those words made reality, and my panic was just bad attitude. I started yelling because I could hear the crowd outside, and I needed him to understand this wasn't a help desk prank. He told me to stop screaming and follow process. Follow process while people trampled each other. Follow process while the system wore my name like a mask. I didn't have time to win a phone fight. I ran downstairs to the basement rack where the sign, controller lived, the box that feeds everything. You're not supposed to hard cut it. You soft reboot, drain sessions, do it clean. I didn't care. I ripped the panel open and yanked power. The UPS screamed. Fans wind down. Lights died. On my phone, the endpoints dropped one by one from green to gray. Up on campus, the screens finally went black. For half a second, I felt relief like I'd caught it in time. Then the radio proved I hadn't. They're still running, someone said. They're pushing at the west stairs. Another voice cut in, breathless, and said someone went down on a stairwell landing and people kept stepping on him. I heard the word unresponsive and my legs went loose. Then somebody else said they were starting compressions, like it was just another task on a checklist, and the radio went quiet for a beat because everyone was listening for an update that didn't come. A security guy burst into the basement, saw me crouched at the open rack, and his face flipped from confusion to accusation. He yelled I needed to get upstairs right the fuck now. He didn't ask what happened. He acted like he'd caught me mid-act. Campus police met me at the top of the stairs. 2 officers and a supervisor, all of them moving fast, but talking slow, that controlled tone they use when they already decided you're a problem. They asked for my badge. They asked for my phone. They asked why I sent the alert. They asked it like the answer was already written. I kept saying I didn't. I kept saying I got locked out, and IT saw my account active without me. One officer wrote everything down like he was building a neat little story. The other watched my hands shake and looked at me like I was either lying or losing my mind. Then my supervisor showed up and poured gasoline on it. He talked to the officers before he even looked at me, like he was already negotiating his own innocence. He didn't ask if anyone was okay. He walked in and said, "Lo, what the fuck did you do?" I snapped back that I didn't do anything except my job, that someone hijacked my login, that the system locked me out of my own access, that IT could see my session like a ghost wearing my name. He told me to calm down because this was serious. I said, "Someone got crushed and you're worried about your report." He turned to the officers and said I'd been acting erratic all evening, like he needed to plant that seed early. They kept me there for hours. They took my laptop. They took my keys. They made me list every person who'd ever touched the sign system, every contractor, every student worker who'd once asked to just watch. Every name felt like poison leaving my mouth, like I was dragging other people into my mess. At one point, the supervisor cop said, almost casually, "Access-wise, you're at the top." Like it was just a chart fact, not a noose. Like it didn't mean my name would be the first one people said out loud when they needed someone to blame. When they finally let me leave, the campus looked normal again, but it didn't feel normal. It felt like the aftermath of something nobody wanted to name. People clustered in angry little circles. A couple med carts rolled past like nothing happened. I walked to my car and felt eyes on me, like the whole place had decided I was the reason their night went wrong. I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch and replayed 9:41 until my head hurt. I kept seeing that evacuation message and my own username beside it, like I'd signed it. I kept hearing, "We see your session active," like it was a verdict. I kept thinking about that /poll thread and the way they wrote "North exits" like they already knew what the signs would say. The school posted a bland statement about a false emergency notification and an ongoing investigation. No detail that cleared anyone. Just enough words to keep lawyers happy. And then the next day, /poll posted screenshots of the evacuation message with captions and my employee directory photo under it, like a signature. My actual headshot from the staff page, my name, my title, all laid out like a little trophy card. The thread didn't claim credit. It didn't need to. It just needed the world to believe I did it. I had payroll close out on Monday. My motive was to finish without another audit flag. My role was the clerk who fixes hours and prints reports, and my plan was to scroll for Chan on my break for background noise, then go back to clean numbers and go home. The hospital was already running hot. Phones rang nonstop, printers coughed paper, HR did that fake calm walk that means somebody upstairs is pissed. I sat in my glass box with 2 monitors and a stack of exception reports and chewed through them one by one, fixing missed punches, correcting premiums, patching overtime, rerunning calc reports until the red warnings disappeared. I took my break at the desk because if you leave the floor, someone corners you with a quick question that turns into an hour. I open /B because it's loud and dumb and it shuts my brain up. The thread title was the kind of edgelord dare I usually ignore. I can make your hospital bleed without touching a patient. I almost kept scrolling. Then I read the first post and my stomach tightened. OP bragged about tiny edits, not hacking like in movies, Nostalgifs. No dramatic lockdown. Just small changes that look like human error and only show their teeth when pay hits. He wrote about shaving differentials, flipping overtime codes, deleting a shift line so a short staff unit gets shorter than sitting back while supervisors fight nurses and nurses fight payroll. Replies ate it up. People begged for examples. A couple called him a psychopath. He wrote like he was proud of knowing exactly where to cut, so it hurts the most. Then he dropped one detail that made my throat clamp shut. The nickname our payroll team uses for a busted time clock in the old wing. We invented it ourselves, half joking, half hating that stupid machine because it kept missing swipes and dumping work on us. It wasn't in any policy. It wasn't something you'd guess unless you'd sat in our office and heard us bitch about it. I reread it until my eyes blurred. OP posted again. Watch next pay period. I closed the tab hard like slamming a door. I told myself it was a coincidence. I told myself some idiot heard it in passing. I went back to numbers anyway. My fingers kept slipping. I caught myself staring at the little green dot on Teams, like it could tell me if someone else was watching. I reset the lock timer and started locking my PC. Next pay period hit, and the emergency schedule didn't wobble. It snapped. It started with emails, then it turned into bodies. The emergency manager showed up outside our suite with a stack of pay stubs in his fist, face red, voice loud enough to leak through the door. Behind him were nurses on break, still in scrubs, eyes bright with that specific rage you get when you've been awake too long and someone tells you your paycheck is wrong. A union rep slid in like a shark, calm and smiling, already picking her target. I didn't even try to explain. I went straight to the audit trail because that's the one thing that usually shuts people up. The system logs everything. Who changed what, when, from which terminal. I filtered by emergency, by pay period, by code changes. I expected to find a supervisor screw up or a bad import. I found my name. Corrections made under my login while I was in the bathroom. Clean timestamps sitting right in the 10-minute window I'd been gone. Same pattern across different employees. Overtime stripped here, differential removed there, a whole shift line deleted like it never existed. It was surgical. It was mean. And it was wearing my user ID like a stolen jacket. I yanked up badge access and camera angles, anything to prove I wasn't at my desk. Badge logs meant nothing because people tailgate through doors all day. The hallway camera didn't point at my cubicle. Remote access showed nothing obvious. And then the worst part landed. The week before, I turned off the aggressive autolock because it kept freezing a long report run. I'd done it myself. I'd handed someone the opening. I walked into my manager's office with the logs shaking in my hand. I didn't knock. I put the printout on his desk and jabbed the timestamps with my finger. I told him I was in the bathroom. I told him someone used my session. I told him I'd seen a thread online where a guy promised this exact kind of sabotage. He barely looked at the paper. He gave me that manager stare like I was wasting his time. I wanted to tell him to go fuck himself, but I just stood there and swallowed it. He told me to stop panicking, fix the pay, and own my mistakes. He said the union didn't care about my excuses. He said if I started yelling hacker without proof, I'd drag the whole department into an audit. He said, flat, that leaving a station unsecured is on the user. I sent him screenshots anyway, audit trail, timestamps, the list of employees hit. I even screenshot the thread title because my brain needed him to see it. He replied with one sentence, screenshots can be faked. That's when the hallway noise climbed. I heard a nurse spit my department name like it was a curse. Someone banged on the suite door. The union rep asked, polite as a knife, who exactly had made the changes. HR looked at me like they'd already decided. They dragged me into a conference room with bad chairs and a dead plant. My manager sat on one side, HR on the other, and they started talking about process and accountability while the emergency was melting down across the building. They slid a corrective action form at me for payroll errors and told me to sign so they could move forward. I stared at the paper like it was a trap because it was, if I signed it, I owned it. If I didn't, I was uncooperative. Either way, I became the simple story. I refused to sign. My manager's face tightened. HR wrote notes like I was confessing. They asked if anyone had my password. They asked if I shared credentials. They asked if I'd been stressed lately. That question made my skin crawl. It wasn't about security. It was about whether they could paint me as unstable if this got messy. I went back to my desk and did the only thing I could do that wasn't begging. I started undoing the damage. I pulled approvals from emails. I rebuilt overtime from manager attestations. I reapplied differentials one employee at a time because batch fixes hide new mistakes and I couldn't afford another one. I ran recalcs until the totals stopped bleeding red. Every bathroom break felt like leaving my wallet on a park bench. I locked my screen like my job depended on it because it did. IT finally showed up with that board, show me the issue posture. They checked my machine, nodded at the audit trail, and said it looked like user activity. No malware alert, no remote session logged, nothing they could pin. One of them said, not even mean just careless, that if someone sat at my desk while I was gone, that was a training issue. Like my life was a checkbox. I stayed after closeout because if I left, the story would keep moving without me. Around 9 p.m. my phone buzzed with a notification from the tab I'd left open at home. The thread updated. I opened it and felt my face go numb. There was a photo of my desk, my cheap pen with the chewed cap, my coffee ring on the blotter, the tiny crack in the corner of my monitor I'd been pretending not to see. The angle was from behind my chair, like someone standing where I sit. Caption: she's looking. I spun around in my empty office like I'd catch him smirking in the doorway. Nothing. Just the printer hum and the air system cycling. I walked the suite anyway, checking doors, checking corners, checking the break room, because my body needed to move. Nobody. I didn't call the cops. I didn't have proof that wouldn't get laughed at. I didn't have a name, an address, a face. I had a photo and an audit trail that made me look guilty. If I went to security, they'd pull my badge, escort me out, and that would be the end of my side of it. The hospital would clap, the emergency would get a scapegoat, and Opie would keep teaching his little crowd how to hurt people indirectly and get away with it. Sitting there, hands cramped from hours of fixes, I finally understood the nastiest part. Opie wasn't confessing for attention. He was teaching a crowd how to break a place by breaking trust, then picking one person to absorb the blame. He didn't need to touch a patient. He just needed a login and a room full of people who wanted the easiest answer. I opened the reply box on 4chan and hovered over post. I didn't type a plea. I typed something uglier. I typed the timeline, the bathroom window, the edits under my login, the corrective action that they tried to shove in my face, the way HR asked if I was stressed, the way IT shrugged and called it user activity, the way the emergency screamed like I'd stolen from them. I typed the desk photo detail by detail because those details were the only fingerprints I had. I typed like I wanted to be believed. And I hit submit because if they were going to write my story anyway, I could at least choose the ending they'd keep.